Greetings all, Benny Reese West. Just going to take a look at uranium for the week. So I thought I'd just start off here on a big monthly chart. I'm just going to look at URA. So I've seen it suggested that this trend has been drawn in and broken, and why would you sell? I'd agree with that generally speaking. What I'm looking at here is the pattern that the market's formed. So what I can see very basically is an impulsive move, a correction, and now we're looking for another impulsive move, which we've definitely got the start of. Okay, so it becomes a question then of trying to work out, well, how far will this go? Now, of course, I don't have a crystal ball, but we just put it together as what the pattern shows us and what we could possibly expect, what we're looking for moving forward. So let's just quickly break it down. I mean, we know we had this run and we had this corrective pullback that just sort of tickled into this 50% line quite a few times. So just in an Elliott sense, what would you expect? Or even just an AB equals CD sort of move? Well, just in a very basic premise, if you hoping for a one-to-one move, then you'd be thinking URA to, up to $42. So I don't know if that's going to happen, of course. But that would be the general premise of what we'd be looking for. But of course, the market, even though this is a monthly chart, the market doesn't often move in a straight line. So all I'm trying to do is put together a plan of where you might need to be a little bit cautious, or how are you going to prepare yourself mentally for what might come. So just as we come in here to the weekly, I think the question is, well, this looks like the first movement up. But of course, as I said, nothing moves in a straight line. So I'd be thinking, if this is the first movement up, and I'm not sure that it is just yet, that we've peaked out for this little run, but we'd be thinking about what sort of pullback we could expect before we go again. That's just basic pattern recognition. So, just looking at this, I think if you want it to be a buy, well, you've got to think about some sort of pullback, and I'm not sure this is the top yet, but I mean, this weekly candle that we had here doesn't look perfect, and the price action afterwards would suggest that some sort of peak is in there. Different for different contracts, of course, but just looking at URA as an example here, we know we topped out right here at this old peak. So it's not unexpected that the market might react away from that, because the market's got memory. But of course, what I'm getting at now is, well, this would be the pullback zone, and of course we can see that just lines up with sort of just around this structure. So the question is, are we going to get back down into this zone before we kick on again, if indeed we do? So just tightening that up, that would be what I'm talking about, laying a plan. I would just be, if you weren't long and you were looking to get long, well, I'm not going to make any sort of investment advice. You've got to decide what's right for you. But of course, I'll just change that. You just got to think about what sort of plan you want to lay, your battle plan, to make sure that if it does come back down here, that you're not bailing out. If you're a believer and you want to be an investor in the uranium space. So I wouldn't necessarily say, dump your position because it's all over. But all I'd say is, you just got to be prepared mentally to wear it down back to these low 20s, because there's definitely a real possibility that could happen. At some stage, I'm expecting it probably will. So just look at areas, retracements, and just have yourself mentally ready for the battle ahead. Okay, because At the moment, I'm still thinking this is 1, 2, a 3. We're putting in a 4, and we're going to get a 5. But if we get 5 up, then we're almost certainly going to get some sort of 3 back down in some way, shape, or form before we can kick on again. So if we get 5 up here, the question will be: is that it? Now, I don't think so. I don't think that a run like that. Let's just clean this up a bit. I don't think a run like that would do enough to balance this run, okay? Because I'm looking for a run, a correction, and another run, and this hasn't gone anywhere near far enough to make me think that we can balance this run. So that's why I am expecting more upside, but just be prepared. And so what would lead us to think that that we are going to come down and and test out a larger retracement. Well, this week didn't end perfect, did it? I mean, it's a couple of heavy days, and that looks like a shooting star. But I don't think it's hugely sinister because it's not at the top. Like if it was, if you're shooting star at the top of a big run like that, but it's a little short-term reversal. But right now we're sort of looking at this. We don't want these lows to give way because then we've got a good change of character, and this is quite choppy, so it's difficult to make too much out of this right now. But I think we can move in a little bit closer, which is what I'm going to do for the rest of them, just to have a look at what's happening up close. So I'm just in here on a 1 hour. So, the obvious thing you can see is rally, a pullback. We haven't broken that low. We've rallied again, and now we're pulling back. But just at a very basic level, well, we've got an uptrend going in. Okay, it's not steep. Okay, but we've got this big pullback here from the high. Are we just correcting that before we go again? I mean, this is obviously some sort of correction, but are we building for another rally? Well, that's probably just at this stage what I'd be looking on is just this basic little trend channel that we've just got going in here, and obviously we want to hold this and we want to break the top, so we've just got to wait and see what happens. But that would just be the general point of call that I'd be looking at here, just in all of them. They're all pretty much showing the same sort of thing. This general, can we just come out and take this high and just keep this swing structure going? So I think that's your point of call next week for URA. Energy fuels is kind of in the same boat, but we had this lower low here, so that same thing. I don't think this is a very well established trend, because while I look at this, I'm just basically looking at all this and going, well, maybe not quite that, but this is just sideways chop more or less. But this is developing, so I'm just looking for this to not. I mean, this could come outside this basic trend channel at the moment, but as long as we don't threaten those lows, I think if we do threaten those lows, that we've got to go and revise the count, and then we can expect that deeper pullback. But but even just looking at this as it sits, I mean, this is, even though we started here, we didn't, but coming off this low here, we've come right back and just touched this 50 and failed away from it. Okay, so there is a gap here that sort of needs to be filled in, but I think I've pointed this out on the weekly. It's not hugely sinister just yet, but we've just got to be wary of this, okay? And if these lows, these basic lows, because we had this resistance here, and right now we're sort of just not holding it super well. So if the lows are going to give way, then I'd just be thinking back towards this sort of high to mid $6 range, that just as a pullback. Okay, that's what I'd be thinking. But once again, my general thinking in an Elliott sense is that this first movement's not an impulse. I think it's a expanding leading diagonal. But the general, I'm still thinking that we've got 1, 2, that this is 3. We've put in this big flat 4, and now I'm looking for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. I'm still on that. I still don't think that. I still think that's the most likely price for path, but I could be wrong, of course. And just looking at Denison, I mean, this one was a little bit. I mean, we're back here on an hourly, but this didn't show as much. But it's the same things going on here, just on a very light basis. That we've just got the start of a bit of an uptrend channel forming in here. It's certainly here, but we're sitting right on it to close out the week, so you wouldn't want it to slip any further. Going back the other way, of course, we've got to keep in mind that we just came into the retracement zone and we've just turned away from it. So opposing forces. I don't think you need me to tell you that these tops are pretty crucial. We need to take those out. But I'd just be looking at this and just hoping that this can establish some sort of trend, and then we can move back up to take on these highs. Same thing here for Cameco. It's a little bit messy. we're not really sort of there. There's not a really well-defined trend channel here. Maybe you could say that we're putting in one here which sort of lines up a little bit better, but once again we're resting right on it. So early next week we have to see what happens, but we did get through the 61.8 here, which is kind of good. And my premise in this is still the same in an Elliott sense. So I am just still sort of holding on to this, that we've got a leading expanding diagonal going in here for the first movement, wave 1, 2. We've come up for 3. We've made a big ABC for 4. This isn't really a great looking start to an impulse for wave 5. But unless these lows give way, then I'm just going to hold on to this for now. I don't see any reason to change the view just yet. So you could say that we've got a bit of a change of character here, that we've got one, that we're coming up like that. We'll just go back in. So, you can say that we've got this move up, this move back, and we've made a higher high. So the question is, of course, are we going to make, we've obviously got to hold this to maintain. But, there's nothing to say we're not going to come down this far before we go again, if we go again at all. So just that basic sort of, and like I said, I'd just be looking at maybe just this little trend that's just developing here, and just hoping that this holds into next week, and that we can start to push back. And just looking at UEC, and this was one that I think showing that the cleaner looking Elliott pattern, and even the way it's gone 1, 2, and then it's come up, and it's taken out the highs. That to me looks a little bit more like this could be the 5th wave coming in. So we have to wait and see, of course, but this is forming up quite well. I mean, this and the physical uranium trust are the ones that did break through their high. So I'll stick with this. I don't see any reason to not stick with it yet, to change my view yet, that I'm just looking for this 5th wave. Could this be the 5th wave? I don't think so. I mean, it doesn't look like 5 waves to me. It looks like we've still got 1, 2, 3. We've got a run, a pullback, and an extension. So that to me looks like something that's still in progress. So even just coming in here and looking at it on an hourly, I mean, you could sort of say, well, okay, we did tick through the 61.8 here, but we've more or less held it, and we've come up and broken the top. So, it's just looking at this, we've even gone through the 100%. So, like I said, I don't, even though it might be a little bit of a stretch, I mean, I suppose you probably got to find a way to call that an impulse. That's a correction. Then we've got another run. I wouldn't try to break this into this whole little thing into an Elliott pattern just yet. But, I think just at a very molecular level, we're just coming back in here to test through this. So that's kind of where we want to hold. And that, would keep the structure alive, that we can hope that we've got something like this going in. So, like I said, I'm not going to break this into an Elliott count, but just on a basic swing structure, that's kind of where we're looking at. So, like I said, I'm looking for, we've got the one more high that I've sort of been looking for, but I'm not sure that we're there in terms of, I mean, you can see here just on the, this is a 1 hour, I probably should not look at that on a 1 hour, but if we just look out here to a daily, we've got to be a little bit cautious here, because we have got a little bit of divergence here, but we did sort of hold this 40 area. So, I would hope that the RSI is going to travel like this as price continues to rise. That's what I'd be looking for. So just because we got divergence between here and here, even though it's a bit of a warning shot, I just think that we've held here, and that this cycle down is finished, and now this is telling us that. So, like what I'm saying is that the RSI could now just travel like this sort of thing, like that, and that's fine. And then what we do is, when we think we've got something that looks like 5 waves, and then that starts to diverge, then that would be the warning shot that this run, or this little cycle, is over for now. Just looking at URNM, get that out as a tongue twister, it's the same deal. Okay, at the bottom of this, I mean, obviously we've got this run to the top, but the bottom of this is looking a little bit more important as we finish the week just resting on it. So the same sort of warning shots, we did get through the 61.8 here, but the same sort of warning shots apply. So when we sort of go back the other way, we're through the 61.8 the other way. Now, make of that as you will, but this is just what I'd be looking at, just at a short-term basis. Okay, so we know that we've got sort of a run in here, but we've come back down. So, you know, obviously just on a basic swing level, that would be what we'd want to hold. But, you know, the way that trend channel is sort of formed up just in the short term, that I'd just be watching this line to see if we're going to crack through it. And so just looking at this Sprott physical uranium trust, once again, this was very strong and took out this top. So now I'm starting to think, okay, well, what would I want to see here? Because to me, just at a very basic level, I mean, that might be 4 there. We don't have to put that together a little bit differently. But putting that aside, we've got a run, a pullback that didn't break the low, and an extension. And that's just basically, in an Elliott sense, what we're looking for. Okay, so what I'd sort of think here is that this is probably 1, 2, 3. We come in to make it 4, then we get 5, and that could be a bit of a topping motion. So I won't go into the ins and outs of the overall pattern because, I mean, well, let's look at it on a wider basis. So on the same thing, I mean, a rally, all this correction, and we're rallying again. So what would you expect? Well, trying to count this is quite tricky, but if you would just look at it on a very basic level, that we ran to the top here, we came back to here, what would you think? Even if you're just thinking about a basic AB equals CD, well, you know, 100%, we're getting close to that. So that's why I'd be a little bit wary, especially if we just come in here and make one more high. But I think that would probably constitute somewhere where you'd want to be pretty wary. Okay, so we're not far away from it, but I just think if we get up here to this sort of $26, just be a little bit, just think about it, okay? Because this has been a great run, but, and I'm not saying that it could stop here, because we could look for a much bigger extension. So there's nothing to say that if this is going to do 1-to-1 that it could stop there. I mean, we could come all the way up here to the 161.8. That's definitely not impossible. We don't know, of course. We don't have a crystal ball. We're not trying to predict the market. All we're trying to do here is just lay out a plan and a possible roadmap. Okay, so I'd be thinking about that, but certainly this area here would be somewhere where I'd look very closely because of what I've just gone over. Just put everything aside, and I think, you know, that there's just definitely a good case here that, you know, we had this, that we've got sort of something like 1, 2, 3. We've come back here for 4, and if we come up and get a 5 and everything lines up, then you've got to make a decision about what you want to do. So that's just what the pattern's telling me. But, you know, you can take the simple view and just say, well, you know, we had all this and we broke through, and why would you sell it? Well, in short, you know, don't have to. Like I said, it's just all about laying plans. And, you know, does that mean that this is just the start of the rip before we come back and then we go even further? Well, you know, nothing's impossible, of course, but once again, I just caution that if you're going to take that view, I just have my sort of mentally, I'd just be prepared for the big pullback, because, you know, that's what I would expect would happen eventually. I mean, we don't have it yet, of course, but like I said, just you got to lay that mental plan. And the main reason I say that is so you're not getting out at the wrong moment, okay? Because you've got some fudge, you get some fear and doubt in your mind about what's going on. So that's all I'd say with that. Now, just in here looking at the Sprott Junior uranium miners, and you know, it's the same sort of thing. We just got to look at. I mean, we did break the 61.8 there, which is good, and we sort of took this high out, which is good. But now, of course, we're just in the process of pulling back from here, and we've got through the 61.8. So once again, I'd probably just, the only problem with this one is, you know, I'd probably be looking at that. You know, maybe you could bring that out to that, but there's not a very clean swing structure in there as yet, I would say. So like I said, I'm not going to try to put any sort of Elliott into this, but you don't want, even though this is quite deep, you just don't want this low to give way, because you want that swing structure to hold. So this one's a little bit more fluky, I think, because I would thought that's not a bad trend, but we've got through it, so we've just got to be pretty wary on this one. And I'll just finish off here with next gen. So once again, the bottom side of this isn't perfect, I don't think. We're still a fair way away, and it's not it's not making a super duper case here for a trend channel, not as well as some of the other ones, but we've held here so far, so that's good. But you can sort of make the case that we came up here, we even though this is a bit, but we came here, we've got an extension, we've got another pullback, we want this to extend on further. So that's just kind of how I'm just looking at the microstructures at the moment, and hopefully this can make this sort of trend channel here that we can find a bit of a low. But once again, that's sort of snuck outside that one, but that's kind of what you'd be hoping to see, that it starts to show some sort of geometry. So look, I think that's it for this week. It's we're just churning, we're going sideways, but we're trying to establish a trend. Some of them are trending a little bit cleaner than others. Of course, this one is one that's not trending clean, but maybe just keep your eye on something like energy fuels, which does have something that looks a little bit cleaner going in. And then from there, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Okay, so just the recent lows need to hold. That's pretty obvious and pretty basic. But that's the truth. We just need to hold these lows. If we don't, then we're going back here, and we're starting to look at all this, thinking, well, maybe we've peaked out, but who knows? Anyway, I'll leave it there for this week. Have a great weekend. Good luck next week, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.